From the personal logs of Admiral Vexthera of the Kytherian Star Empire. Oh, how magnificently we had calculated. The humans, those primitive bipedal mammals from the third rock orbiting a mediocre yellow star, would surely cower before the might of the Kytherian armada. Our intelligence networks had mapped their every military installation, catalogued their laughably outdated weapons, and assessed their psychological weaknesses with surgical precision. What could possibly go wrong? I remember the exact moment when High Command issued the directive. Commence Phase 1 of Operation Stellar Dominion, Admiral Zorth AK had announced with his usual theatrical flair. Target their emotional centers. Break their spirit before we break their bodies. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. We would strike a single facility on their homeworld, not a military base, not a government installation, but something far more devastating to their fragile psyche. The humans, we had observed, possessed an irrational attachment to their offspring. Perfect, the target was selected with meticulous care, the Riverside Children's Home in what they called New Hampshire. A cluster of red brick buildings housing exactly 47 parentless human larvae, aged between 4 and 16 of their solar cycles. The facility maintained minimal defensive systems, essentially none, by our standards, and held no strategic value whatsoever, which made it the perfect psychological weapon. Commander Yexkal had volunteered for the honor of delivering the strike. His ship, the Void's Edge, was a sleek Predator-class destroyer, more than capable of reducing the entire facility to molecular dust. The humans wouldn't even detect his approach until it was far too late. Sir, Lieutenant Hexmora had reported from the sensor station. Long-range scans confirmed the target. 47 life signs detected within the primary structure. No defensive measures active. I had nodded approvingly. Excellent. Commander Yexkal, you are authorized to proceed with the strike. Make it clean, make it visible, and make it memorable. The plasma torpedo had lanced down through Earth's atmosphere like a falling star, its trajectory calculated to leave nothing but a smoking crater where the orphanage had stood. We had even timed the strike for maximum psychological impact, 0800 hours local time, when the human larvae would be gathering for their morning meal. The explosion was visible from orbit. Within minutes, every human communication network on the planet was broadcasting images of the devastation. The red brick buildings had been reduced to ash and twisted metal. The playground where the young ones had played was now a glass-fused hollow in the earth. We had expected tears. We had expected panic. We had expected surrender. What we got was silence. For exactly 6 hours and 37 minutes, the entire human species went quiet. No emergency broadcasts, no frantic military communications, no desperate pleas for mercy. Just silence. That should have been our first warning. The second warning came in the form of an encrypted transmission, broadcast simultaneously from every major population center on Earth. The message was brief, delivered by a human female with steel-gray hair and eyes that seemed to burn with cold fire. My name is Director Elena Vasquez of the United Earth Defense Council. Earlier today, you murdered 47 children in an unprovoked attack on a civilian facility. We have received your message, and we have prepared our response. She had paused then, and I swear I could feel the temperature in my command center drop several degrees. You have made a grave error in judgment. You have assumed that because we are not the strongest, we are weak. You have assumed that because we are not the most advanced, we are helpless. You have assumed that because we value life, we will not fight to defend it. Another pause. The human smile was terrifying in its complete absence of warmth. You are about to learn why Earth has never been successfully invaded. Not by disease, not by extinction events, not by cosmic disasters, and certainly not by predators like you. We are not strong because we are the apex species of our world. We are strong because we became the apex species by fighting everything else our world could throw at us. The transmission had ended there, but the real message was just beginning. 3 hours later, our deep space monitoring stations detected something impossible. The humans had launched ships. Not just military vessels, but cargo haulers, civilian transports, mining rigs, even luxury yachts. Everything that could carry a weapon and maintain life support was heading toward our border systems. Sir, Hexmora's voice cracked slightly, the numbers don't make sense. We're tracking over 12,000 vessels, and they're all accelerating at velocities that should liquefy any organic crew. I had studied the tactical display with growing confusion. The human fleet was massive, but their technology was centuries behind ours. Their fastest ships couldn't possibly match our cruising speed, and their weapons were primitive projectile-based systems that couldn't penetrate our shield matrices. Let them come, I had declared with confidence I didn't entirely feel. We'll destroy them in open space before they can fire a single shot. The first engagement occurred in the Proxima Drift, a debris field along the outer edge of our territorial boundary. Commander Yexkal's destroyer group had intercepted a formation of human vessels, crude, angular ships that looked more like industrial equipment than military hardware. Enemy fleet consists of approximately 50 vessels, Yexkal had reported. Design suggests converted civilian craft. Weapons appear to be kinetic projectile systems with chemical propellants. Engaging now. What happened next defied every principle of space combat we had ever learned. The human ships didn't engage in formation. They didn't attempt to match our tactical superiority. Instead, they scattered like a swarm of angry insects, moving in completely unpredictable patterns that seemed to ignore basic physics. Sir, they're not following standard engagement protocols, Lieutenant Zextel had reported with obvious confusion. They're ramming our ships. Ramming? I had leaned forward in my command chair. That's suicide. Yes, sir. They're converting their cargo vessels into kinetic weapons. They're strapping fusion charges to mining rigs and steering them directly into our hulls. The tactical display showed a scene of absolute chaos. Human ships were exploding against our vessels in brilliant flashes of light, each sacrifice taking one of our destroyers with them. But for every human ship that died, 3 more seemed to take its place. They're using their own ships as ammunition, Hexmora breathed. They're turning their entire fleet into guided missiles. The humans had weaponized their own desperation. They had taken their most basic advantage, their overwhelming numbers, and turned it into a tactical doctrine that rendered our technological superiority meaningless. But that wasn't the worst part was that they were laughing. Sir, the communications officer reported, we're intercepting human transmissions. They're telling jokes. Jokes? I had demanded. In the middle of a battle? Yes, sir. Listen to this. Hey, Marcus, bet you can't ram that cruiser dead center. Watch me, Katie. Hold my beer. The humans were treating their own deaths as entertainment. They were dying by the thousands, and they were laughing about it, and then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the first wave was over. The human fleet had been destroyed to the last ship, taking 15 of our destroyers with them. It should have been a victory, instead, it felt like a defeat, because 30 minutes later, our long-range sensors detected the second wave. And this one was twice as large as the first. Sir, Hexmora's voice was barely a whisper. They're not going to stop, are they? I had stared at the tactical display, watching as wave after wave of human vessels appeared on our sensors. Each fleet was larger than the last, each ship more heavily armed, each crew more determined than those who had come before. The humans had declared war on the entire Kytherian Star Empire, and they were using the Orphanage as their battle cry. From the personal logs of Admiral Vexthera of the Kytherian Star Empire, the third wave arrived carrying something we hadn't expected. Psychological warfare specialists. Admiral, Lieutenant Hexmora's mandibles clicked nervously as she processed the incoming transmissions. They're broadcasting on all frequencies. It's a memorial service. I had expected battle cries, threats, or demands for surrender. Instead, the humans were reading names. 47 names, spoken with reverence and grief that somehow made the vacuum of space feel colder. Tommy Martinez, age 6. Loved finger painting and dogs. Sarah Kim, age 12. Wanted to be a veterinarian. Marcus Thompson, age 15. Captain of the Orphanage Chess Club. Each name was followed by a moment of silence, then a simple declaration, "We remember." The psychological effect on my crew was immediate and devastating. These weren't faceless enemies anymore. These were individuals with dreams, hopes, and futures that we had casually erased. "Sir," Commander Yexkal's voice carried over the comm system, "request permission to withdraw to the secondary defense line. The humans they're making this personal." Personal. As if war had ever been anything else to these creatures, the fourth wave brought engineers. Our sensor arrays detected massive construction platforms among the human fleet. They were building something in the void between star systems, assembling it piece by piece while their escort vessels engaged our forward scouts. "What are they constructing?" I had demanded, studying the scattered debris signatures. "Unknown, sir. The energy pattern suggests some kind of manufacturing facility, but the scale is unprecedented." Within 72 hours, we had our answer. The humans had constructed a mobile shipyard, capable of producing replacement vessels faster than we could destroy them. They were literally building their fleet as they fought, but that wasn't the brilliant part. The brilliant part was what they were building. "Sir," Hexmora's voice carried a note of professional admiration that I found deeply unsettling, "they're not just replacing their losses. They're upgrading. Each new ship incorporates lessons learned from the previous engagement." The humans were evolving their technology in real time, using our own weapons against us to improve their designs. Every battle became a learning experience, every defeat a stepping stone to improvement. The fifth wave brought something that made my blood run cold: silence.no communications, no battle cries, no memorial services. Just hundreds of human vessels advancing in perfect formation, their hulls painted flat black to absorb sensor scans. "Sir, we're having difficulty maintaining target locks," reported Lieutenant Zextel from the weapons station. "Their ships they're almost invisible." The humans had learned stealth technology. Not from us, not from captured vessels, but from their own understanding of physics applied with terrifying ingenuity. They had studied our sensor systems during previous engagements and designed countermeasures that rendered our technological advantage meaningless, and then they started talking to us, not threatening, not demanding surrender, but actually talking. Human voices filled our communication channels, speaking in broken Kytherian, asking about our families, our home worlds, our reasons for fighting. "Hello, Kytherian vessel," a human female had broadcast to Commander Yexkal's ship. "My name is Captain Rebecca Torres. I have a daughter about the same age as Tommy Martinez. Do you have children?" The psychological warfare was more effective than any weapon they could have deployed. My crew began to hesitate, to question, to doubt. These weren't mindless berserkers seeking revenge. These were people, fighting for something they believed in with a clarity of purpose that made our own motivation seem petty and hollow. The sixth wave brought the impossible, captured Kytherian technology. "Sir," Hexmora's voice was barely a whisper, "they've reverse-engineered our shield matrices. And they've improved them. The humans had taken our most advanced defensive systems and made them better. Not through superior technology, but through creative application of principles we had never considered. They had looked at our shields and asked not, 'How do they work?' but, 'How can we make them work better?'" The seventh wave brought laughter again, but this time it was different. This time, it was the sound of people who had already won. "Admiral Vexthera," a human voice called out over the fleet communication system, "this is Director Elena Vasquez. We would like to discuss terms." Terms. They were offering us terms. "You are in no position to negotiate," I had replied, though my voice lacked conviction. "You are technologically inferior, numerically disadvantaged, and fighting a war you cannot win." The silence that followed lasted exactly 47 seconds. 1 second for each murdered child. "Admiral," Vasquez's voice carried a note of gentle amusement, "you've been fighting us for 3 weeks. In that time, we've destroyed 43 of your ships, captured your shield technology, reverse-engineered your propulsion systems, and established manufacturing facilities in 7 different star systems." She paused, and I could hear the smile in her voice. "More importantly, we've learned something about ourselves. We've learned that when you threaten our children, when you attack the innocent, when you mistake our compassion for weakness, you don't just wake up humanity's capacity for war. You wake up something much more dangerous, our capacity for growth." The tactical display showed the truth of her words. The human fleet had grown from thousands to tens of thousands of vessels. But more than that, it had evolved. The crude civilian conversions of the first wave had been replaced by purpose-built warships that incorporated the best of both human and Kytherian technology. "We're not going to destroy you," Vasquez continued. "We're going to do something much worse. We're going to make you irrelevant." The 8th wave didn't attack. It simply arrived. Hundreds of human vessels took up positions around our fleet, not aggressive, not threatening, just present. Like shepherds watching a flock of sheep. "Sir," Hexmora reported, "they're not targeting our weapons or engines. They're targeting our communication arrays." "Why would they?" I began, then stopped as understanding dawned. They weren't trying to destroy us. They were trying to isolate us. "Sir," Communications Officer Lexthor reported, "we're receiving a data package from the human fleet. It's a complete intelligence briefing on our own empire. The humans had spent 3 weeks fighting us, and in that time they had learned more about the Kytherian Star Empire than our own intelligence services knew. They had mapped our supply lines, identified our political weaknesses, and calculated the exact resources required to bring about our complete economic collapse. Admiral," Vasquez's voice filled the bridge one final time, "you killed 47 children to break our spirit. Instead, you taught us something valuable, that the universe contains species willing to murder innocents to achieve their goals. Thank you for that lesson." The transmission ended, but the data package continued downloading. It contained detailed intelligence on every hostile species within 1,000 light-years, complete tactical assessments, and strategic recommendations for dealing with each threat. "Sir," Hexmora's voice was filled with awe, "they're not just ending the war. They're preparing for the next one." The humans had turned our attack into a learning experience. They had used our aggression as a catalyst for their own transformation from a single-world species to a galactic power, and then they did something that still haunts my dreams. They left. The entire human fleet simply turned around and went home, leaving us adrift in space with our weapons disabled and our pride shattered, but not before dropping off 47 care packages, one for each member of my crew. Inside each package was a photograph of one of the murdered children, along with a note written in perfect Kytherian, "This is who you killed. This is who we fight for. This is why we will never forget." The war was over. The humans had won without firing a single shot in the final engagement. They had proven that true strength doesn't come from superior technology or numerical advantage. It comes from the willingness to transform tragedy into purpose, defeat into knowledge, and grief into unbreakable determination. The Kytherian Star Empire surrendered 3 days later, not because we were defeated, but because we finally understood what we were fighting against, that we had awakened something that had been sleeping in the dark corners of the galaxy, a species that could learn, adapt, and grow stronger with every challenge they faced, that we had tried to break humanity by killing their children. Instead, we had taught them to become unbreakable, and somewhere in the ruins of that orphanage, 47 names were carved into a monument that would stand for eternity, a reminder that some victories are worth any price, and some lessons are worth learning, no matter how much they cost. The humans had answered our fire and steel with something infinitely more powerful: hope, determination, and the absolute refusal to let evil go unanswered. That we had bombed their orphanage, they had bombed our assumptions about what it means to be strong, and in the end, we were grateful for the lesson.